to Couch Potato Diary on this Wednesday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. If you are listening in podcast form, rate, review, subscribe wherever you can. Coming up on the show today, we look at the greatest CFL players of all time as we continue to get hyped for Grey Cup 110. And it's another edition of the diary entries as I go over the Flames game last night against Montreal. If you want a bit more like in-depth big picture on Flames and Habs, I had a great show with Mark Dumont on our Game Over head-to-head last night on the SDPN YouTube channel, so check that one out there. But this is going to be a bit more blow-by-blow, and then also caught the tail end of a couple of basketball games last night, so giving my thoughts on that, and then we'll close with today's ticket. As always, you can follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I am at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email the show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Video's jumpy. Let's get on with the show. All right, we continue to get ready for the 110th Grey Cup. It should be, honestly, it should be a fun game. The spread right now is around 8.5. I am hoping that comes down a bit. 8.5 feels a little bit high. I haven't seen a lot of player props out there yet, but I'm going to be looking at a couple of those. We'll go over all of those coming up on Friday's show. But I thought today, while we're getting ready for the future and all of that, let's celebrate the past, shall we? With a look at the greatest CFL players of all time. Here are my rankings from 10 through 1. In at number 10, it is Jackie Parker. 13 years in the league. He three-time Grey Cup champion. But the most amazing thing about this player is he played quarterback, running back, defensive back, and kicker. Playing back in the, I believe it was 50s and 60s. But when you do like that sort of versatility and played, it seemed like from all accounts, I don't have a lot of eyes on his games, but it seemed like from all accounts he played fairly high level at all of those spots, and so he deserved, I thought, a spot on this list. Interestingly, no active players on my list. I don't really feel like we're at that spot. Now, you can make a really compelling case for Zach Collaros if he gets a third Grey Cup here in 4 years, that he could maybe make his way up this list a little bit, but we'll see. Coming in at number 9, it's Mike Pringle. He retired as the league's leading rusher and also retired as the leader in yards from scrimmage in his CFL career. He's a 3-time Grey Cup champion, I believe, and a 7-time All-Star. I say I believe. I'm trying to read my own printing. He was like the most dominant running back I can remember watching in the Canadian Football League. A fantastic mix of speed and power, and what was just like an absolute force to be reckoned with. He would be one of those guys where he'd run into the pile and say, okay, well, we got him for a couple, and then it's 2nd and 3. It's like, how did he... What? He was an absolute stud when it came to those sorts of things. And so he gets my note here for making this. At number 8, it's Damon Allen. You look at the stats and probably deserves to be higher. 23 years in the league and 4-time Grey Cup champion. Former All-Star, retired as the all-time leader in passing in the Canadian Football League. The reason he's not higher on this list to me is I think a lot of his accomplishments are a bit more that of an accumulator than someone who was this all-time great. He was just really good for a really long time, which there's absolutely something to be said for that, right? I have him as the 8th greatest player in the 100 plus years of the Canadian Football League. It's the 110th Grey Cup this year. League's been around for a minute, so I got him in at number 8. He never felt like the most dominant guy, especially when I like really started watching. But like, again, very good and a cool way to end things in his career out in Toronto. But it never really felt like the dude who was like, okay, that this is like an all-time great here. He just kept going, and eventually I was like, oh, fuck, I guess he's one of the best. So he comes in at number 8. Right ahead of him is Ron Lancaster in at number 7. 16 seasons in the league, 2-time Grey Cup champion, 2-time MOP, and a 4-time All-Star. One of the first real faces of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and there might be some bias in putting him on this spot, but I think that The numbers would probably look a little bit better had he had better Saskatchewan teams around him. They do win the first Grey Cup in Riders history in 1966. He and someone else who will come up on this list a little bit later on. You can also, like, that's not what this list is for, but you can give him props as being a pretty damn good head coach as well. But he is someone who, like, face of the franchise, and it's just because Saskatchewan was a bit of a poverty franchise in the 60s and 70s, and some would argue now, that he doesn't have the accumulated stats that maybe the guy right behind him does, but the level of excellence that he played at, I don't think can be ignored. Coming in at number 6, it's Alan Pitts. He retired as the all-time leader in receiving, 2-time Grey Cup champion, 6-time All-Star, held in very high regard out here in Calgary, and it's basically a toss-up, him and Milt Stegall, as the best receivers in the history of the Canadian Football League. Which brings me to number 5, Milt Stegall. As 14 years in the league, he's the CFL's all-time leading receiver, 9-time All-Star, and a most outstanding player. I don't know if you had them like head-to-head, who comes out on top, but Milt Stegall was just so much better than everyone of his time and was such a major part of what was going on out in Winnipeg. Wild that he doesn't have that Grey Cup, as Winnipeg went from 1990 until very recently without Grey Cups, but one of those guys who just like was in absolute complete control of the game, even from the wide receiver position. And just one of those guys was like, fuck, man, like how is he constantly getting open? As someone who cheered for the green and white, a difficult guy to really cheer against, that was for sure. In at number 4, it is Anthony Calvillo, the all-time leading passer in professional football. That's always a weird one, but it's accurate anyway. 3-time Grey Cup champion, 3-time MLP. I was thinking about this when putting this list together. How differently do we remember Anthony Calvillo's career if he doesn't win those Grey Cups in 2009 and 2010? Like, if he doesn't have the back-to-back wins against Saskatchewan, or if they lose that, like if 13 men on the field doesn't happen, and they just miss that field goal and he loses that one, even if he wins in 2010, what does it mean for his legacy and how differently we view Anthony Calvillo? But he gets the 2 right at the end, and it's like, you know what? 3 feels like the right number of Grey Cups for this guy. Maybe they got away with one against Saskatchewan in 2009. 2010 was close, but the Riders were never really in it. Anthony Calvillo, it was a model of consistency, and he was one who elevated everyone around him. Not that the guys below him on this list didn't, but it was at just another level of dominance in the Canadian Football League, especially at that late of a point in your career as well. It was consistent greatness for him, and that's why he gets in at number 3. In at number 4. In at number 3, it is George Reed. We did a legacy look on him when he passed away last month. Retired as the leading rusher, Grey Cup MLP, 7-time All-Star, and was just like this power back that you think of from the 60s and 70s, and someone who was, along with Ron Lancaster, the face of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, especially in the 60s, and just dragged that team to its first Grey Cup, and the first real actual run of success that the Riders had was basically just on him and Ron Lancaster dragging that team across the finish line. So he comes in at number 3 for me. At 2, it's Warren Moon. 6 seasons in the CFL, 5 Grey Cups, 2 times he was the passing leader, and 1 time MLP. That stretch there, from 78 to 82, where Edmonton just won everything always. It is one of the most dominant runs you can have in sport, and it gets him a pretty decent run in the National Football League as well. He was kept out because of the color of his skin and people just doubting what he could do, and then he balled out in Edmonton, and everyone recognized what he could do. The last season doesn't end great, but 5 Grey Cups. You can give a guy a pass for maybe faltering toward the end, but even like he was great, just the team around him wasn't very good. And in at number 1, it is Doug Flutie. 8 seasons, 6 MOPs, 3 Grey Cup championships. He was the MVP in all of those. It was inevitable that they were going to be around it the whole time. I remember when the Riders made it to the Grey Cup in 1997, and it was just like 2 plays in, it was like, well, this is over. It was dominance. The whole way it was dominance. 6 MOPs in 8 seasons. Like that's just, again, it's not 23 years or 14 years or anything like that, but to be the best player in the league for 75% of your career, you just can't match that. It was an unbelievable run for Doug Flutie in the CFL, and one that will be very difficult to match. So, those are my thoughts. Leave a note in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, for who you think should be among the greatest of all time in the CFL. Now, let's get into more present day stuff and see what I saw last night around the sports world. All right, we will start with the Calgary Flames against the Montreal Canadiens. Again, if you want more big picture thoughts on this game, check out Game Over Calgary and Montreal. It was a game over head-to-head, me and Mark Dumont. My camera is really glitching out today. I apologize. So now, for diary entry, for those of you who are new, it's called Couch Potato Diary, so a nice little thing instead of just my notebook. But I take notes on everything I watch, and so this is just kind of a blow-by-blow of what I saw from the games that I watched from the night before. So the game starts, and Pospisil has a nice chip to Zadorov for a really good chance. They get control, and Kadri gets another opportunity. That Pospisil, Kadri, Zari line was really strong for the Flames last night against Montreal. I would say probably their best, and it's not particularly close. Zari already has 3 goals in 6 games with this Flames team. He is among the point leaders on the Flames. And so I think from a Calgary perspective, you have to be pretty happy with what you have got so far from Connor Zari. And it's been a nice boost for this group with him and Pospisil on the same line. I think they've played really, really well together. And I think that, like, there are a lot of concerns still in Calgary. I don't think Nazem Kadri is one of them at this particular moment in time. Anyway, another part of this is Zadorov was flying last night. We'll get into a play where he wasn't great on, but overall, Nikita Zadorov played some really, really good hockey last night, I thought, for the Calgary Flames. Caulfield gets a good rush down the left side, and he gets a pretty good chance after that. They control with a bit more pressure. Anderson gets a strong play in the corner to keep a shift going. This is Rasmus Anderson. Strong play in the corner to keep things going after a good shift from Nazem Kadri. So again, that Kadri line setting the table and other people coming in to follow off of it. Just a note here on Rasmus Anderson. I thought he was excellent last night against Montreal, and I think he is a player who has elevated his game this season. Like, if we're looking at like who on the Flames has stepped up, Rasmus Anderson has stepped up. He has been everything you could want and more from a Flames defenseman this season, and I think you look at him as someone who I think is probably playing the best hockey of their career right now. Gallagher gets a rush chance. That one is stopped. And Montreal at this point, like I wrote in my notes, they are flying early. This is a Habs team that plays with a crazy amount of pace, and a Habs team that they can fly up and down the ice. And they dictated how this game was played for most of it, quite frankly. And I love the way that Montreal was able to play. I came out of this game really, really high on the Habs, both now and in the future. Tanev makes a nice diving play to break up a Matheson chance. Matheson was kind of all around it last night. And then you get Caulfield with a good chance. Once again, Markstrom, though, was excellent in this game. And that's another part of this, is Markstrom was just so good for Calgary. Caulfield was too. I loved Caulfield's game last night. He felt dangerous every time he touched the puck. So we go to the second period, and early on, Kadri, with a nice play, spins off of the wall and just spins and shoots and scores. There isn't a whole lot of analysis on this. Kelly Rudy made a point that it's really difficult for goalies to stop plays like that. I would imagine so, but a perfect shot from Kadri. Like I said, it feels like he's going right now. And so from a Flames perspective, you like that. But just 17 seconds later, Dvorak with a pass in front. Lindstrom, it's a tough shot. It bounces in off of Rasmus Anderson, off of Markstrom, and into the back of the net. So a difficult blow there, I think, for Calgary to take. But all of a sudden, it's 1-1. And it's just like, man, really? Like, it's felt pretty even to this point. But Calgary finally gets their goal. It seems like they're maybe the better team. And Montreal is just right back. Boom. Goal. And it's kind of a fluky one, so it's tough off of that. Then Barron makes a really bad turnover, leads to a tripping penalty. That was a real tough one there. Like Barron, just a no look pass, it leads to a tripping call. But after that, like Montreal kills that penalty, and they were quite good at it. And I think when adding things to the list of oh shit for the Flames, Calgary's power play I think needs to be on that list, as it's not really produced a whole lot lately. Moving on, Josh Anderson with a really good shot. It hits the crossbar. He hasn't scored this year. I didn't realize that. We talked about it on Game Over last night. He is the type of guy that GMs salivate over, right? Like he's a big dude. He's got a great shot. He can skate quite well when that ball gets rolling. And so it's just, you don't know what's kind of holding him back a little bit, but I have always liked his game. I wouldn't give up the farm for him, but if you are looking at retooling for the Flames, I think you could do worse than a Josh Anderson. Rasmus Anderson, then a pass to Zari, and he bangs it in, and it's 2-1 Calgary. So again, Zari, right place, right time. He's not a big dude, but he's playing right in tight. And Rasmus Anderson, another one where he has stepped up and made a big play. After that, though, Dvorak with a steal from Zadorov, finds Caulfield. Again, Dvorak was great in this game. Caulfield was really good. And this is the Zadorov factor, right? Like, this is why I don't trust him as more than a 5'6" guy, is because he'll look great when it's rolling. And then he will make some mistakes where it is so infuriating. And this was 100% one of those times. And then not too long after, Huberdeau gets called for tripping. He, again, was really quiet tonight. There was not, that is the most quiet the Backlund, Coleman, and Winger X line has been all season long. And that is a really scary sign for Huberdeau, because to me, breaking him and Lindholm up and putting him with Backlund and Coleman was kind of the last break glass in case of emergency situation. And the fact that it played out like that is, I think, a real concern from a Flames standpoint. From there, where are we here? Oh yeah, on that, Montreal's power play looked really dangerous. Like there's, again, they just, it's not just that they are fast, they play quick. It's quick puck movement all around, which you don't really get with the Flames. A lot of it is geared toward trying to get Caulfield that shot over on the far circle, but there's still some other dangerous weapons on this. Just not enough right now. Like, Montreal is still probably a superstar away from really threatening in a very good Atlantic Division and a pretty good Eastern Conference, but they have a strong foundation built out there. We go to the third period. Ruzicka pokes a puck away from Matheson. It leads to a Lindholm goal. They challenge for offside. It's pretty clearly offside. We didn't get the view of it until after, which is infuriating if we're going to be doing these. I don't know why the NHL has access to that and we don't, from a viewer standpoint, but it was a good play by Ruzicka to set that up. Like, it was strong play down low. I thought that line was a little quiet in this game. Overall, like, that's, you're hoping to kind of spark that line. And I get, like, the changes were kind of to get Huberdeau going. But I thought that line was sort of lacking in this game a little bit here. But overall, like, they almost had a goal. Anyway, Caulfield gets another good look down the side. He has such an excellent shot, man. Like, this is a dude that's going to score 50, I think, this year. Or maybe not this year, but soon. Like, he has that kind of offensive upside, that I think, like, that this is a guy who's going to lead the league in scoring at some point. Like, I think that highly of him, especially after watching this game. Monahan has a shot deflect off of the post. A good look there, but overall Montreal did kind of slow down in this third period. I thought Calgary was the better team in the third. First and second period, I don't know, man. It kind of seemed like a toss-up there. Kadri knocks down Suzuki. It's a penalty on that power play. Or specifically on that penalty kill, I guess. Calgary gets a 2-on-0. Coleman pass across. He and Backlund 2-on-0, and they miss the net. And if there is a better way of summing up the Flame season, I don't know what it is. That was just a putrid miss. You can't miss the net 2-on-0. Like, you can't have that happen. So that was pretty brutal to see happen there for the Flames. Suzuki gets a chance in tight. He was okay in this game. He had a couple of good looks later on, but he certainly wasn't the star of this show, I don't think. Anyway, and then Gallagher gets called for a penalty on Lindholm. It was a really bad penalty call, and I guess Mangiapane thought so too, because then he takes a dumb penalty on Matheson in the slot, where for no reason he just pushes him to the ground. And this is what we talked about before, after that suspension with Mangiapane. You're not at a point where you can be doing this kind of shit. Mangiapane is too important to what the Flames are doing, especially offensively, especially on the power play, that you can't be taking dumb penalties like that. It's a couple now for Mange, and it's just, he is now at that level where even you just being off of the ice, let alone like taking off a power play, putting your team shorthanded in a 1-goal game, like that's dumb, don't fucking do it. But he is at a level where just him not being on the ice for 2 minutes is a hindrance to this team. So his importance means he needs to stop doing shit like that. And it's been a couple of those lately. And again, it's been a frustrating season, but just stuff like that can't happen. We go from there. Anderson, now the Flames kill it off. We're late in the game. Anderson gets a perfect feed from Sean Monahan and a picture-perfect chance in tight, and Markstrom robs him. Anderson is going to be seeing that in his nightmares until he actually gets his goal. But Monahan obviously had jumped tonight playing against his former team, but his playmaking has got a lot better in Montreal. I think his pace has got a bit better. Like, I think he's skating just a touch better. And maybe that's because he's healthier now. But I never thought of him as a burner, but I thought he played quicker in this game. Sets up an Anderson chance. Really nice play late. Calgary does get that stop. Obviously, Markstrom phenomenal. And then they clear. And there's about 30 seconds left. I'm like, okay, Montreal maybe gets it with 1 second left. Like there's Suzuki's already in the zone. Like it's really like teams are able to kind of lock down the blue line and make it really difficult for a re-entry. Suzuki just blew by everyone. Like that was his best play of the game. Not the best defending from Calgary, but I thought that was a really good play from him. It started a good push late. They weren't able to break through, and Calgary wins 2-1. But I came away from this game honestly more impressed with Montreal than with Calgary. Like from a Flames standpoint, you kind of came away from it thinking, okay, well, Calgary hung with them, which is not what you want to come away thinking from these games. You want like, okay, Calgary reestablished something. Like I don't come away from this thinking Calgary's playoff team now, baby. They've got this one locked in. That's not where I am at with this Flames group at all right now. It was more, well, they survived that one. So great work. Other things I watched last night, Denver against the Clippers. We had Denver -5.5, so this was a little infuriating, but the Clippers go down big. Then in the third quarter, they're able to work their way back, and they did it by going small. They went hard in Westbrook, Paul George, Kawhi, and PJ Tucker, and offensively, it was really rolling for them. Like that was the first time this Clippers offense looked kind of in sync. But late in the game, just back on this offense, late in the game, there wasn't a real flow to it. Like the best play they had was a drive and kick to Norm Powell for a corner three that at the time kind of made it feel like, man, the Clippers might actually do this. But after that, it was iso ball, iso ball, iso ball, iso ball. And it was just that they still have a lot to figure out with this offense, but it's getting late early for the Clippers in this game. And the problem with that lineup, like, okay, they've got the scoring figured out. This is good. Oh my God, Jokic is eating them alive. Like he just had a field day with that lineup, either getting to the hole anytime he wanted. Reggie Miller pointed out on the broadcast, the Clippers were really late and sometimes not at all sending help, and that was a big problem for this team. And it caused some issues, let's say, defensively, as Jokic just kind of got what they wanted. And then, like, no Murray hurt them, and we'll get to how in a minute, but Gordon and Porter Jr. both had a couple of big plays late. The one thing, I believe it was Gordon late, it's a 5-point game. Gordon gets fouled and misses back-to-back free throws. And it's like, as someone who had 5.5, it's like, that was it. That was our chance. You make both of those, it's basically over. But instead, he misses them, and then the Clippers come back and get a couple of good looks. They had a look to tie the game down 3, and George ends up it ends up in a wedgie where it just sandwiches between the backboard and the rim. But they had a look to tie this game, and they didn't do it. So the Nuggets late kind of failed to put this one away, and a real big play in this. It's a 3-point game, and instead of fouling, the Clippers press and try to trap, and it leads to a turnover. Jokic passed it in the middle, and I think it was KCP who turned it over. And it was just like, that was a point where it's like, man, this is where having a Jamal Murray would have really helped them in that spot. And so, like, his absence was noticed last night, but overall, Denver is like Jokic. It was so calming just knowing like, okay, this guy's got it. Like he missed a three in the corner late in the shot clock where it was basically just turned around and heaved. And for 99% of its way to the rim, you expected it to go in and then it rims out. But you expected that to go in. That's how good he was. And then the supporting cast did enough. And for the Clippers late, like it was, the offense was going great. And then fourth quarter, all right, stalled. And so that needs to get figured out. I think they're going to be okay, but defensively, like that was a real issue last night against the team that's the standard bearer in the NBA. Also from last night, Memphis taking on the Lakers. I tuned into this game right around the time it was over. Like I don't think I watched LeBron play a second in this game, but just like going back and watching some of the stuff after and reading some stuff. The Lakers set a franchise record for most 3-pointers in a game. The record was 21, sorry. And they kind of blew past that one. And so you see the score and you see the Lakers get that and it's like, oh, okay, well, they just out 3-pointed the fuck out of them. That was not the case. Memphis was kind of shot for shot with them in the threes. It was just everything else that was a problem. And even without Ja, I was not anticipating this team being this bad this early on in the season. No Steven Adams, I think, hurts them significantly. But Ja Morant not being there, and like this just... There was no life to this team. And defensively, they had some real problems as well. And that's supposed to be kind of a hallmark of this team. So Memphis, I think even when Ja gets back, has a few things they need to figure out if they're going to be competitive this year. Or maybe this, like it's already kind of looking like just a lost year out in Memphis. So those are just some of my thoughts from what we saw last night. Let's close the show here with today's ticket. All right, we got 3 games on today's ticket this evening. Raptors taking on the Milwaukee Bucks. Toronto played Milwaukee really well last time. Defensively, they gave them quite a few fits, and offensively, they kind of carved them up. And so because of that, I like the Raptors in this spot. I'm taking Toronto plus 5.5. With, again, not an official pick. Little sprinkle on the old money line there. Dallas minus 5.5 against the Washington Wizards. The Wizards are bad, and Dallas is actually playing some pretty good basketball right now. So I'll go Mavs minus 5.5 in that spot. And moving into the NHL, the Canucks are still kind of riding a heater, and the Islanders just don't score enough. So I'm going Vancouver minus 1.5 goals in Bo Horvat's return to Vancouver. That's going to do it for today's ticket, and that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. That stuff helps the old algorithm out. If you're listening in podcast form, rate, review, subscribe wherever you can. And, yeah, that all helps. Coming up on tomorrow's show, it is going to be, NFL Power Rankings Day. And we are also looking at the top players in the CFL right now as we get ready for Sunday's Grey Cup. So that's all that's going on social media wise. Find me Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email the show couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Talk to you guys tomorrow. I'm out.